Hello, today's book is Uneasy Rider by Mike Carter. Uneasy Rider by Mike Carter. He specifies 42 as being kind of an important year, and he covers it in the prologue where he has a number of instances of folks who either left or died at the age of 42. And so his chapter, he says, it's complete unscientific analysis that men might reach some kind of crossroads at age 42. There are no signposts at this junction, no clues as to where to go, just a terrible restlessness and desire to be somewhere else. One night, men go to bed all well with the world, and then they wake up and everything has gone to shit. In April 2006, I turned 42. And then he goes on and describes, the things that led up to him leaving. And the book is very interesting. Let me read some of the stuff he has on the back here. He says, what does a man in his early 40s with everything he needs but nothing he wants do with the rest of his life? Over the course of 6 months, 20,000 miles, and 27 countries, Mike Carter was determined to find out. This is what drew me to this book. One evening, after too much drink, Mike makes a rash promise to take off on a large motorbike and go wherever the road takes him. That's one of the key things. He doesn't actually have it all planned out. He just decides to go, and I really like that. That's the kind of travel I enjoy. Although, oftentimes, schedule and money mean you have to plan it out, because otherwise you're just riding in circles, and it's maybe less fun than if you actually go somewhere that you're trying to go. However, when you're going on this big of a trip, having no plan works out quite well. He says, in the sober light of day, the fact he's never ridden a motorcycle before has a tendency to get lost even on the way to work. Now, a guy who's never ridden a motorcycle deciding to go on a motorcycle trip, and then someone who, he says, he has a tendency to get lost and doing these kind of things, there's a certain bravery to that. Maybe it's stupidity, bravery, I'm not sure which. Ted Simon kind of reminds me of that too, where he said he had really bad anxiety, and then he decided to go on a trip around the world, which makes no sense to me at all. Newly divorced and bored with the daily grind, Mike wobbles off, armed with only a thirst for adventure, a hankering for romance, and a desire for some answers. Any answers. So I absolutely recommend this. I've read this a couple times. I tend to keep my books around for a while because you know how memory is. You give it a couple years and you reread it and you're like, I don't remember any of this. And that's how it was when I reread this. Actually, it was maybe a year ago. It was like, gosh, I don't remember half this stuff. And so it's, keep the books around and read them. Like a lot of guys, he keeps track into the specific areas. 8:30 a.m. My first electric shock of the day from the hotel's elevator call button. So he was in somewhere. He's in Lithuania, and he goes into some detail about a bit of a diary kind of a style, but it's really good because it kind of again makes you sort of feel the progress of the day. He ends up meeting some folks, and there's some desire to just immediately settle down. Even you meet someone who you're drawn to, and now you want to just like stop everything and just stay with that person. So he's dealing with some of that as he's dealing with himself, and it's just a very interesting read in that regard. It's a bit of a self finding yourself kind of a story, and sometimes those can be it can feel a bit like a cliche, but when I read these kind of books, I don't feel that way at all because I like the fact that people are taking time to think about what they're thinking and to think about how they feel and to go out and make decisions even if they don't feel quite right. One thing I will say about this book that I find a little bit odd, if you can see the cover here, see this here? Here's actually the motorcycle he was on. Do that again. Does that look like this? But if that's the worst thing you can say out of a book, that's not too bad. One thing he does say, or does put in here, which I don't particularly care too much about overall, but I find it interesting, generally speaking, is that in his epilogue, he has the trip by the numbers. He says it was 19,950 miles ridden. He says, I was attempted to make a final circuit of the M25 to hit 20,000, but the lure of my own bed won through. 23 gifts received, 22 number of ferries taken, 8 number of tires worn out, and he goes through the list. I won't read them all. And but it's kind of neat to have that as well as like a summary. Like, here's my trip. you know, and here's all the things that I had to deal with in a quick summary fashion. So it's very good. So I highly recommend Uneasy Rider by Mike Carter.